You're listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Theresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Becoming More Me. I have a good one for you today that is based on things I have compiled and shared with so many people in my community, clients, and other women who have just been interested in getting more out of the time and money they spend to get therapy or do personal development or just become more of the person they want to be. So today we're talking about better therapy. We're talking about how you can get more bang for your buck with what you're already doing or what you can add to it, how you can take things to the next level. Because I so often hear from women, especially when I'm conducting breakthrough sessions or consultations, and we're talking about the real grit of what they're going through or what they're challenged by. And oftentimes it's not the first time they've tried to work on it. So a lot of times I'm speaking to women who are already feeling a little bit skeptical, I guess might be the word, because they've already tried. They are trying, and they feel like they're on this hamster wheel, having this groundhog day of their symptoms or their challenges or their traumas, their anxiety, just kind of rearing its head over and over again, no matter what they've tried. So of course, I have recommendations specifically for each of them of what they can do. But I realized I have a lot of recommendations that are more general and things that I can definitely share with you guys as a whole that are going to massively and positively impact the outcomes you get from what you're already doing. And that could be therapy. Maybe you're seeing a therapist, a counselor, someone for guidance. It could also be personal development work, whether you're reading a book or doing a self-paced course or whatever. And this could really help you to get better results. And that's what we all want. None of us go into therapy or seek solutions for our innermost problems, wanting it to be slow or incomplete or not happen. We seek these things looking for the most efficient and effective way to get out of our own way, feel better, and go live the dream, right? So we're not looking to stagnate. And yet some of us will spend multiple years with therapists or counselors that are not getting us results. And I think part of the problem is not realizing how empowered we are to ask for what we want and thinking that because they're the expert or the doctor or whatever they might be, that they know exactly what we need and we should just wait for them while they figure it out and deliver it to us. But from everything I have known, we have all the answers within ourselves. It's really helpful when someone else can guide and help us to unlock them, but everything you need is already here. So it's just a matter of accessing it. And sometimes that also means speaking up to say, this is really what I want to approach today in my session. Or I know we've been working a lot on fill in the blank, but I'm really feeling called to work on this instead. And how can we handle that and get the feedback and the help that you really, really want and need? So today I am going to share some of my favorite tips so that you can receive better therapy. Now, the first one is literally to go with your gut. You have got to trust the person who you are allowing to help you work on your life and your emotions and your feelings and the really vulnerable areas of your life.
trust is definitely required there. You need to be certain that they have your best interests at heart and that they can actually help you to get to where you want to go. Listen to your intuition. Go with someone who makes you feel expansive, secure, safe, capable, and really feels like someone who can guide you to the change that you're seeking. And that's really important because if you don't do that, a lot of these other steps are not going to matter. And I know a lot of times, we live in a world where, and it's so important, recommendations are the basis for so many therapists' businesses. And you might have a friend that recommends a therapist to you that has had a great experience or gotten a great result. But then when you meet that therapist, there's not that same connection. And some people feel like, oh, well, if so-and-so got such great results, I'm just going to go through with it and I'm just going to do it. Listen to your gut. If the energy's not right when you have that initial consultation, then choose someone else. There's no harm in doing that. And definitely make sure that you are going to have some kind of an initial consultation or way to meet the person that you're going to be working with before it's just assumed that you're working together. Sometimes that is not the case. Also, once you've chosen that person and you know that this is who I want to work with, I'm committing a chunk of time to this person to help me, then take care of business up front. Schedule your sessions in advance so that you don't chicken out or run out of time or avoid them. And, if your therapist is able to, if you're going to be working with them for at least 3 months, 6 months, whatever, see if you can schedule out that entire time with weekly or biweekly or monthly appointments, whatever the time frame is going to be, so that you have them. That will really help to ease your mind. And if you are looking for a result, which is what this is all about, better therapy for better outcomes and better results, then you have to be committed. Part of that commitment is making sure that you have prioritized your time with the person that's going to be helping you so that you can see it through to the end, so that you can stick to the plan, and so that you can figure out all the other areas of your life that need to be figured out. I'm sure you have plenty of things on your schedule that also need a place. So make a place for this as well. It's important to have an agenda. Okay. And that's separate from scheduling an appointment. An appointment is just the time and place that it's going to happen. The agenda is what is going to be covered in your appointment. It all depends on who you're seeing. Some therapists, show up, hey, what's on your mind? You just talk about it, work on it. That's fine if that's what you're going for. If you're actually trying to work on something specific, perhaps your relationship with money, your relationship with your husband, your relationship with food, your relationship with self, whatever the specifics are that you really want to work on, and there's so many to choose from, you've got to have an agenda if you're actually going to do it. You cannot expect the person that you are working with to know what is important to you if you don't tell them. And it is very easy to run out of time or to waste half, if not all of a session with small talk before you dive into the important stuff. The important stuff is why you're there. That's what you're there to cover. It is the most important thing. So definitely advocate for some kind of a plan, a roadmap, a direction that you're going to be going in for each session that you're going to be attending. And then you also might just want to ask your therapist kind of what therapy with them is going to look like. What are you getting into? What's this process going to be like as you work with them? And they should be able to kind of give you a good, clear picture of what it's going to be like working with them and how the time is going to be spent. And that's important. The next thing I really recommend is staying focused on you. Might seem like an obvious one. Of course, you're focused on you. You made the appointment. You're there for yourself. It's all about you. But it's not all about you if you spend your appointments in a state of blaming or deflecting or just spilling and venting frustrations about others, because you are the only part of that equation that can be changed. Okay? I'm not saying not to vent or to speak up about your frustrations, but I am saying that, once you've decompressed a bit, released some of those built up feelings, and gotten that off of your chest in an efficient way, then head back to the empowering side of therapy that's all about taking responsibility for your own well-being and working on yourself. Switch gears. Make sure that happens so that you don't just spend an entire session dumping. Okay? The next thing, and this one is not going to be a surprise to anyone, is to get your nervous system on board. Okay? And you guys have got to know that I'm going to talk about this because I love EFT and I know what a huge difference it can make in your result. But you don't have to know anything about EFT to get certain similar benefits and get more mileage out of your therapy. So, a simple tip that you can do during a therapy session, whether it's in person or virtual, is to do 1-point tapping. So when we do EFT tapping, we have about 9 different points that we hit regularly, but you could just choose one. The collarbone is really popular. If you're watching this in video format, you can see me tapping there. Our collarbone itself is a little higher than the collarbone point, which is kind of that little notch below it. So if you're able to, just while you're talking, while you're venting, do a little 1-point tapping. You can even do both sides or one. Another great spot to focus on is the side of the hand, the karate chop point. This is great for psychological reversals and things. So as you're talking, just tap. And you can simply tell your therapist that you're going to add in some tapping while you talk so that you can better integrate the therapy and calm your nervous system at the same time. He or she should understand that. And if for some reason they have a problem with it, they might not be your person. This is a really, really strong tip and a really great way to get more mileage. And it shouldn't be anything that causes any problems. And you'll be able to be releasing energetic blockages as well as, the stuff that's happening in your frontal lobes as you're simply doing talk therapy. It really does make a difference in the way that you feel, not just in that moment, but going forward, as the energetic blockages being removed can make a very lasting difference. The next tip I'm going to give you is to breathe, which might also seem like a no-brainer. But do you ever have those days where when you do finally take a deep breath, you realize that it's the first time you've taken one all day? When we have appointments to work on ourselves, sometimes we can be a little stressed. We can be a little dysregulated, and recentering ourselves and getting a good deep breath both before. I highly recommend, if you're going to drive to a therapy appointment and see someone in person, then before you go inside, hopefully maybe you have a minute and you can just sit in your car and do a minute of breathing. If you're an Apple Watch fan like me, there's even that setting on the watch where you can breathe and the watch guides you for a minute. Pretty cool. And if not, you can also just, breathe while you're in the waiting room or while you're waiting for the therapist to come into the office, and just really feel yourself in your body and get centered and prepared for the breakthroughs and the meaningful shifts that are going to be coming to you. It's going to help you to be more expansive. It's going to help you to make room for all of the insight that's going to be coming your way, and to just have a greater sense of calm as perhaps you're getting ready to discuss some things that might not be the easiest to talk about. So if you also find during your appointment that you're feeling emotional or more charged than usual, then come back to breathing. Allow your breathing to get you back to a safe feeling space. And then after your session, take some deep breaths as well. If you can combine this with the 1-point tapping, even better. Okay? All of these things are so good for your nervous system as you also incorporate that therapy and integrate it just deeply. The next thing I'm going to recommend is that you have to be willing to collaborate. Therapy is a collaborative thing, and you've got to be able to connect and check in with your therapist about your progress. So whether you're going to be working with them for a few months or a few years, you really want to establish that connection. It kind of goes with the first tip about the trusting, but connection is something that is, you begin creating it at the beginning, but you have to maintain it throughout the process of working together. This is another relationship in your life. And so in one of the previous tips, we talked about creating that agenda and that roadmap together to get you from where you are to where you want to be. So it's really important as part of the connection and collaboration for you to let the person you're working with know if you feel you've gotten off track. Or even more importantly, or equally as important, to let them know if your own path is changing. Maybe your goals aren't the same as when you started working together, and that actually changes the path for how you're going to get where you're going. All of this is so important for you to tell the person that you're working with so that they can perhaps change approaches. Another thing that's important is if you do not feel like your therapy is delivering the results you desire, speak up. Seek solutions. Don't just keep showing up to appointments and being disappointed. Okay? Sometimes it gets to the point where maybe therapy's been great and all of a sudden you feel as though you've outgrown your therapist. It happens all the time. It's okay. And it's totally normal. At that point, it's time to acknowledge how they've helped you to get to where you are and to seek out someone new that will be able to help take you to the next level. Believe it or not, counselors, therapists, coaches, they're all used to this happening, especially if they're good at what they've been doing and they've been doing it for a while. Everyone's consciousness and healing happens at different rates. And sometimes a really good therapist or coach can be a great catalyst for you having great elevation in your consciousness and awareness and in healing. And sometimes you just kind of zoop right past what they're able to help you with. And they will be so happy that they were able to help you along the path. And they should be totally okay with you moving on too. And yeah, it just, there shouldn't be any question about that. You've got to do what's right for you when it comes to your own therapy and coaching. And sometimes we outgrow people. This happens in romantic relationships. This happens in friendships. It also happens with therapists. It's just part of life. And it's part of our consciousness evolving. And that's really something to celebrate. It's not a bad thing. We shouldn't feel bad about it. We shouldn't shrink ourselves or play small so that we don't have to keep growing. Keep growing. If that means you need to find somebody new and keep growing with that somebody new. My next tip is super important. Get weird and be negative. Go there, guys. You didn't decide to get help because everything is okay. You have things that you're desiring change with. And in order to achieve that, you have to share the deep, dark, weird stuff. And you need to show up for your session ready to work, ready to get gritty about it. There's absolutely no results to be had without your honesty, your effort, and your contributions to your sessions. Practitioners are not mind readers. Okay? You are leveraging your time and money with them to resolve uncomfortable, embarrassing, sometimes shameful, sometimes awful stuff. Things that bring you pain in your everyday life. Things that have been keeping you separate from your inner being, your highest self, your good feelings. So make the most of this time. so that you can do just that. This can be really hard for us, especially as professional women, because we are used to putting this facade, this best foot forward and best face forward. And when you're in a session with a coach, a therapist, a practitioner, whoever, this is your chance to air it out. This is your chance to receive guidance without judgment that can help you to genuinely feel better. So you don't need to show up and try to sugarcoat things. It's not going to serve you. And I know how hard it can be oftentimes, and I've gotten it down to the point where it can be like a one-liner when I'm working with my own coaches or therapists, where it's just kind of like, hey, you know what? I'll sarcastically say, I bring my best self to these appointments. I promise you, I'm a much more empowered individual outside of them. But right now, I am just dumping it all out there. So, and I know you're not judging, but it feels important to me to let you know that I'm not always this negative or sad or whatever. And that takes 30 seconds or less. I feel better because for whatever reason, it's important for me for them to know that like, I am not 24/7 negative. But if I'm going for coaching or therapy or self-help, I'm going to use that time to get my weirdest, most negative stuff out so that when I'm living my life, I authentically and genuinely feel positive. It's so important. And therapists get it. They know that like, you're not coming there to talk about how awesome everything is. There's going to be things that are going to be awesome to share with them that have gotten better since you worked with them. And yeah, they want to hear it and you want to share it too. But you're still there because you still have things that you're peeling back layers on, and you're wanting to learn more about yourself, and you're wanting to figure out all sorts of things. So dump it out there. They know that you're not like this 24/7. I hope you're not, at least. And the other thing is that if you find it too difficult to talk about those deep, dark things, you may need a gentler form of therapy, depending on what kind of therapy you're getting. Of course, I always go back to EFT. I personally think it is and studies show it is the gentlest form of therapy for the things that are so, so difficult and delicate to deal with. And it's also going to help bring your nervous system into the picture every session, throughout the session. And you may also need a little bit more work on the subconscious. So just consider those things if you're having trouble talking about the things that need to be talked about, and find yourself a seasoned practitioner that can oversee those things and make sure that you don't become re-traumatized or more traumatized by doing the work. The work should not be traumatizing. It should be freeing and empowering, and it should lighten your load. Okay. The next tip that I have is work it solo. Okay. Make the time between your sessions count. Some coaches and practitioners will actually give you some homework to do. Some won't. Sometimes it'll be optional. Sometimes it won't. But I think that if they don't, asking your practitioner, hey, I'm not going to see you for 2 weeks. What would be the best thing for me to be doing to continue making progress during that time? I think that's a fair question to ask, and that they should have some really good recommendations to give you for how to make the most of that time so that when you return to them, you're even better than when you left. Because that's the way to keep making progress, is to find ways to create and maintain momentum. So some things that you can do if they don't give you homework are to take some notes on things that come up for you or things that you want to work on at your next session. Now, bonus points if your coach or therapist offers you access to them between sessions, whether by sending messages through a portal or sending them voice messages or whatever the case may be, because you can use that time to relay information that could otherwise take large chunks of your valuable session to convey. And then they're on the same page. They know what you know, and you can really stay on task and get down to business when it comes time for your sessions. But if your therapist doesn't offer that, that's okay, because if you take notes, then you can really concisely look at things and be like, okay, well, they don't need to hear this whole story, but this is the important part of it. You can summarize it and you can kind of hand it over to them in your appointment in a minute or less, instead of trying to talk yourself through it for 12 minutes and wasting a lot of time trying to convey it. So just it's preparedness, really, and it's sharing, which is all part of that collaboration. Another great thing you can do in between sessions is to meditate on what you're working on and just kind of use it as a focal point. Also, you can find some, what, Abraham Esther Hicks loves to talk about, downstream thoughts, the things that are going with the flow, the things that make you feel really good about the progress that you're making, and then think them often. Think those downstream thoughts often and keep them in the forefront of your mind. Maybe even write them down or put them somewhere where you can read them or see them and kind of play them back for yourself. And you can also use some affirmations. I'm going to need to do a whole episode on these because they're just so amazing. But essentially, our brain responds better to questions than statements. So instead of affirming something, an affirmation kind of asks us a question that allows our brain to respond and find answers. So perhaps you might be asking yourself, why is it that I always get exactly what I need from my therapy? Something similar. I'm going to need to do a whole episode on these because I could go off on a tangent right here and give you like 100 of them. But these are going to be questions. You could make them questions related to specifically what you're working on or whatever. And those are also a great thing to either read aloud to yourself or just say. These are positive questions that helps your brain to find the information needed to answer them and to help you achieve your goals. You could read a book between sessions, something that pertains to what you're working on. So maybe something that relates to healing trauma or focus or relationships or whatever. Learn and implement. And it might give you some topics too for your sessions, or some information to ask questions about or to share with your coach or therapist as well. I also highly recommend, again, some EFT tapping between sessions to work on the specific emotions that might be thematic for you, things that come up over and over again, to start really resolving those energetically so that they stop being such a recurring and cyclical thing. And you can begin to really make some breakthroughs with that. You can find lots of tap along videos that I've recorded on YouTube or in other offerings that I've put out there, but you can also tap yourself. So tons of ways you can learn all about that. And I highly recommend it because it will definitely help keep your momentum and progress coming. And you'll be amazed at how much just these few things that I've suggested can really increase your momentum and add to your results. Now, the last tip I'm going to offer you up on this podcast episode is simply the fact that the better it gets, the better it gets to be. Okay? Life is supposed to be fun, and I believe therapy should have an undercurrent of enjoyability as well. Therapy is like enrolling in a masterclass that's all about you. And the process of understanding yourself better and making breakthroughs and removing obstacles that, once held you back quite a bit can be so exhilarating and so interesting. So if you find it feels too heavy or difficult, or that you're dreading your sessions, then you might want to revisit some of the previous suggestions I've made in this episode. And I just think that even when you're dealing with tough, emotional, sensitive subjects, the right therapist is going to make sure you leave feeling better than you did when you arrived. So commit to the process. Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't cover everything in one session. don't let that discourage you. Just keep showing up for yourself. You're going to be amazed at the effect good therapy can have on this precious life of yours. And these things that you can do to make good therapy way better are going to blow your mind. So I hope that these tips and suggestions were helpful to you and that you can implement them with whatever you're doing to improve yourself right now. And, in my Becoming More Me program, I walk women through 3 different phases designed to empower them to be more confident and become more of the authentic self they want to be so that they can request and receive everything that they truly desire in life. And when I do that, the first phase that we work through is all about elevating clarity and beliefs and self-trust. And then in the second phase, we work on regulating the nervous system, emotions, the mind and heart in a soul-centered way. And then the third phase aligns you with the laws of attraction, and it helps you to fine-tune your intuitive guidance as we take care of anything that might be still lurking in your past that is, directing your course and taking your energy out of the present moment. And we really direct our efforts on deeper healing. And those 3 phases are very quantum and they're not linear, but it really accomplishes the goals and what people come to me to do. Because as we work through them, you're going to undoubtedly have more confidence, greater belief in what's possible. It really introduces a calm clarity to your life like you've never experienced before. For me, it feels like, coming home to your true self. It feels really warm, kind of like this cup of tea that's warming me from the inside out. And through the release and transformation of negative things that have been holding you back, you begin to have big breakthroughs and you show up differently for yourself and your life. And you call in more of that which you desire as a result of those upgraded beliefs that are created. All of that increased self-trust, your regulated nervous system, and the newfound emotional freedom, they really band together and give you much bigger and better results. And this is an aligned path that can transmute and make sense of the things that have been preventing you from stepping into your highest power. So if that sounds aligned, I would love to hear from you and see if this kind of program would be a good fit for you. And we can have a chat. You can always go to my calendar. You can find it at gamechangingconversation.com. And if I'm accepting, one-to-one breakthrough sessions at that time, you can go ahead and schedule it. I have also compiled this entire list of suggestions and tips for better therapy into a really awesome resource. It's called the Better Therapy Checklist, 10 tips professional women use with therapy for exponentially greater calm, clarity, and confidence. And you can get that too. You can find out how to get that in the show notes, and I would be happy to send that over to you. It makes it so that you don't have to listen to this and take lots of notes and things. You can simply go to the show notes and find out how to get it. And I hope this resource really helps you to up-level the results you're getting from your therapy. I thank you so much for listening today and have an amazing, amazing day. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.